Hi folks, welcome back. So in today's session, I'm going to be running down the 101 mixing tips for Ableton Live. So this is going to be really useful for those of you who will be live streaming online, or if you want to just have your sort of set sound ready to go when you do a gig. So I know that from my experience and probably from your experience as well, that when we gig or when we stream online, we don't have an audio engineer to make sure that everything is balanced. So Ableton is actually a really good program to use to make sure that all those sounds sound pretty much crystal clear. So this isn't trying to emulate that of a fully mastered track, but we're trying to get the sound as clear and as balanced as possible. So there's quite a few techniques that you can do within Ableton to allow you to do that. So we're going to go through some very, very basics. So balancing a backing track, for example, making sure that that sounds good against a live vocal. We'll have a look at trying to balance other elements like a bass, a guitar, some software instruments with a live vocal as well. And then I'll also show you some extra tips, so how to use MIDI mapping, how to send effects, how to manipulate that sound live, and how to capture that as a live performance. So hopefully this is going to be some really insightful information for you to get your head around, and hopefully it will be useful for you in the future as well for your performance. So if you'd like to understand how to sort of basic live mix your set, then keep watching this video.
Do 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 ba ba ba. Okay, here we go. So I've just opened up my Ableton session, and you can actually already see that I have started editing within here. So I just want to go through a couple of really neat functions that you can do within Ableton and to sort of set up your session for optimal for a live performance. So please be under no illusion that I play guitar. I really don't, but I have one plugged in just for the purpose of trying to balance a few other live channels in conjunction with clips and some software instruments as well. Okay, so you can probably see from the screen recording that you are seeing some audio coming in here. So this is my main vocal that is coming in here. So I will insert a picture of my setup. You can see that I am just going straight into my audio interface. My microphone is going in through input 1, which is set on here. And the guitar is going into input 2. So I've got my guitar channel here. Now, to hear the guitar, you have to make sure that your audio channel is enabled. Otherwise, you won't be able to hear it. So if I play something now, you actually can't hear it. You can probably hear the bleed through the microphone, but you're not hearing it through Ableton. So make sure that at all times your channel is on, and then you can okay, cool. Right, so as you can hear now, I'm just going to mute that. I've already started playing around with some effects, okay? So I'm going to show you sort of a mix 101, like a standardized mix, and then we're going to go into having a look at things like this, just adding extra effects to manipulate the sound of whether it be a guitar, whether it be a bass, you could have another instrument, or it could be percussion, for example, how to sort of approach editing those for a live performance. Now, you probably think that my voice is coming through quite clear. Now, if I go onto my main channel, I've actually put some EQ and compression on here. Now, if you can hear some of that, you can hear some sibilance coming through. Now, to avoid this, you could use a pop shield. I am just going directly into my microphone, which is a Shure SM58 beta. So the Shure SM58, just for those of you who have not used one before, is exactly like the Shure 58 standard one, except it is much more focused on the high end. So that's why you can hear loads of detail in my voice. But what I like to do when I mix my tracks, so if I just go from start to finish, I've got a synth here. I also have another synth on this one as well. On this channel, I have my guitar. And then on this Vox effects, now it's exactly the same effects at the moment I've got on here as I've got on my main. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how you can sort of manipulate your voice and add effects, either just to the main channel or using send effects, like send effects, which are really fun. We'll go over that in a minute. So what I like to do with any performance that I'm sort of creating is I like to do a bit of a process of elimination. So as I said, we've got 2 software instruments, live guitar, and we've got a live vocal. Now you might have a few live vocals if you're going to be looping. All the principles start the same. So the first thing that I want to do is make sure that I am EQing everything exactly how I like it. Now I've just done a very, very quick one here. And what I've used on my audio channel is I have used in the audio effects this EQ8. Now, underneath the EQ8, you actually have very specific EQ. So actually, it's already set the EQ for you. So if you want to, you could just use a preset. So drag and drop that. I'm going to just do that on top of the guitar just so you can see. So I'm going to mute these effects so you can hear what I'm talking about. So at the moment, that's just a raw signal that is coming through. Now, if you do hear a buzz, that is not because I've got the input set too high. That is actually just because this guitar is old as hell, and the screw in the input is loose. So don't mind the fuzz. If you're going for the lo-fi effect, it doesn't really matter anyway. Let's not be finicky about that. Okay, so just to show you, if I go on instrument, it actually has guitar, so acoustic guitar, clear acoustic, we've got piano, strings, electric guitar. So let's just go for an electric guitar, as that's what it is. I'm going to drag and drop that EQ over the top of my guitar. Okay, so can you see how it's already mapped the pattern of the EQ? So that's what it sounds like with the EQ. That's without. That's with. So actually with the EQ, it's a little bit brighter. Now, obviously you can go in and tweak these parameters. I probably wouldn't do so much of a high cut myself. Definitely need new strings. But you can see actually on the analyzer where the waveform is coming from. So actually anything sort of below this section here, you're actually not really getting many frequencies lower than this area. So if you want to go ahead and cut those, then you can do. So all that means is if you have a bass, you're just making more room for the bass frequencies to live. And anything else in the higher end, so your vocals, your guitar, could be a piano, those frequencies can sort of live within this area. So you can really hear, if I cut the lower end frequencies, how dramatic that sounds. So the more you cut, the more tone you lose. So that's really warm and quite full and open, and the more you cut, the sort of more shrill it becomes. Now you can do that the other way as well if you want to, if you want just sort of the lower end. So let's say, for example, I want just my guitar to sound more like a bass, because I don't have a bass. Maybe I want to cut the higher end. And it sounds very sort of fluffy and warm. So as I said before, depending on what you want to do with your EQ, you might not want to lose tone, but you might just want to tighten up that sound so it's audible. Or you might want to cut the tone and create a totally different texture depending on what you have. But always start with EQ. That is definitely something that I would recommend when you are trying to clean up a live mix, because this is actually what you would do when you start mixing your recorded track. Okay, so once you've sort of gone through and you've EQ'd all the instruments, now I'm not going to EQ the software instruments, and the reason being is that because they're plugins, they tend to already be mixed pretty well. The only thing that we need to do is adjust the volume. So if I play my guitar, that's at a sort of reasonable volume. I'm pretty happy with that. We can see that it's just under sort of -12 here. I might want to boost that, or I might want to add a compressor just to bring that up and control the dynamics a little bit more. If I play my keyboard, let's say take the Omnisphere sound. This is actually quite dominant over everything else. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to literally adjust the volume. And I'm going to put that a little bit lower in the mix. Ooh. I might even put the guitar a little bit lower, this a little bit lower. And then I want my vocals to stay quite prominent, so I'm going to keep that as is. I've also got a drum loop here that I dragged in from the clips. So remember that you can use any of these clips. These are all just factory sounds, all loops. They have a mixture of live drum samples, live strings, pianos, bass, and they also have quite a lot of electronic stuff as well. You can download loads of extra kits off the Ableton website. So if you go into Ableton, and at the top bar it does say packs. So if you go into there and type in free packs, they've got loads and loads and loads of loops. So if you are someone who is more of a loop-based artist, or you just want a bit of inspiration drum beat wise, then definitely go ahead and check that out. Okay, so I have this drum beat here. Now, if I click on this, you can actually hear that it's got an effect on it. So let me just play this without the effect. All right, cool. Now, the reason why I did that is because it's quite harsh, but I might go in and MIDI map this envelope later on, or the frequency actually. There you go. This is what has changed it, but at the moment I quite like that dull sort of dead. Now this is a kick boom remover, so this is quite a cool effect if you want to add this as an effect to dip out any drums or filter out any vocals. I really like this one. You can find in the audio effects, and it's up here in auto filter. There we go. And then this is just the kick boom. So we've got the kick drum remover and the kick boom. I mean, they pretty much work exactly the same way, but I do like this for creating that sort of filter sweep. You know, as the song is dropping out and you want to create a little bit of a suspension, then this is a really good one to use. Okay, so I've got that. Now I don't need to record enable this to hear it. Remember that all clips also go on an audio channel. And just to recap, if you want to create any extra audio channels for other vocal lines, or you want to add some more software instruments in here, like a keyboard, remember to click on create, insert audio track for an audio, insert MIDI track. Now, okay, so before I was actually messing around with these little sends. So at the moment I'm sending that to B, and if you can see at the top of here it says B delay. A is a reverb. So these are really cool if you want to send like multiple channels at once. Now the way you do that, you could MIDI map it, for example. I've got a little sort of nodule on my keyboard down here, so I'm going to use a modulator on my keyboard. So if you remember, if you click MIDI map here in the corner, I could send, let's do the drums, and then move that. I'm going to send the main vocals, and I'm going to send the guitar as well. So in theory, Okay. Cool. So you can do that with any track. So I've created an extra on C here. So there's nothing in there. Remember, it's create, insert return track. So you can have up to 12 of these. So let's say C, you could have, let's see, frequency shifter. Wow. There's some really crazy audio effects in the audio effects rack as well. I would highly recommend looking in here. These are really cool. So you've got amp simulations. Those are great for guitar. You could use those also in a bass to make it really gritty if you want to. They also have some mixing and mastering as well. So crisp, saturate, master, if you want to put that on your master channel. Or send a couple of those just to channels here to clean it up. But yeah, these are all like mixing and mastering. Stereo enhanced master as well, gives you nice stereo spread. Okay, you've also got modulation and rhythmic. So I really like this strange creature. It makes absolutely zero sense in the real world, but it's just fun. So I'm going to drop that on C. Has quite a big tail off on that. Proceed with caution with that one. But there are tons of sort of crazy effects that you can really sort of go to town with. And I think the beauty of doing that in your mix is it just opens up so many possibilities. Okay, so first we talked about EQ. We've had a quick look at some effects as well. Now, if you look at my main vocals, the second thing that I have added here is a compressor. So after you sort of sort out your EQ, make sure that all of these are balanced. Make sure that your volume is adjusted in accordance to what you want to hear. Now, you might want to just do a couple of takes to make sure that everything is sort of balanced as you want. It definitely does take practice. Be under no illusion. You have to try this out many times to sort of figure out your main sound. But after your volume, after you've done your EQ, you can go ahead and on each channel, if you want to just control dynamic range. That's what a compressor does, controls dynamic range. So where you see these peaks here on the analyzer, where my voice is coming through, the compressor is just evening those out. So where you see these big peaks, the compressor is actually making those peaks smaller, and where I'm whispering, it's making those bits louder. So actually, even though I'm changing my volume in my speech, you can still hear everything really, really clear. So that's what a compressor does. So there's quite a few compressors on Ableton. Now, the one that I've used is generic compressor. They have ones for specific reasons, for specific purposes, which is really good if you're not sort of well versed in what compression does. As I said before, the very, very simple explanation is it controls those peaks. But obviously they're different parameters. So you often see ratio, attack, release, and obviously the intensity of that compressor. So if you're not 100% sure on how that works, it is good in Ableton to sort of start off with some of the presets. So as I said, this is a generic one that would work with anything. So I've set those parameters myself because I kind of know what I'm going for. But these are some good ones for acoustic kick compressor. So you might be using sort of like a cajon or something that's more like a natural sort of kick sound. And that's going to compress it really nicely. I think this acoustic kick compressor is actually good on any kick that you find a little bit too boomy, because it just sort of tightens it up. So that's a really good trick to use. Try that if you feel like your kick is sounding a little bit too fluffy. This for acoustic instruments. brute compression. I've never tried that one. Classical compression, that could be maybe a softer one on an orchestra. But like with orchestras, the more compression that you add, the sort of more tone and freedom and dynamic that you take away from it, because it's flattening out that signal. So maybe classical compression, you want those sort of rises in volume, and you want that change, that dynamic change. So maybe that one is something that you want to use. A de-esser, so kind of gets rid of the sibilance within your speech. So if you are using a lower quality mic, or you don't have a pop shield, that can help to eliminate that sort of sound. A flattenator, so that almost puts like a matte filter on everything and makes everything super, super flat. But then again, if you're really going for sort of more of a live feel and you want strong dynamics, that might be something that you want to avoid. Kick reducer, so if something's too overpowering. Soft snare compressor, there's loads to choose from, but of course you can still go within those compressors and change those. Now I just want to just start talking and mute this, and just so you can hear a difference. So if I'm talking now, this is with the compressor, this is without the compressor. So as you can see, it makes such a huge difference. It just brings out all the sort of character, I think, within a voice or within an instrument. So it's definitely something that I would add just to give that sort of crystal clear clarity within your mix. So that is definitely something to add. So, checklist. EQ. So make sure that you EQ. Software instruments is probably not necessary. If they're good quality software instruments, they've already been EQ'd and compressed, actually. The next thing you want to address is volume. So set your volumes. Add a compressor where needed. And then, of course, you can go ahead and, as I said, use your... Oh, Aqua Pazza. I think that's pizza dough. Great. Quit my mail. You can go ahead and obviously add different audio effects as well. So other more elaborate things, like I said, on the amps, you have the crazy ones like the space, and then they have like these big chambers or cluster sound, erosion delay, just throw one on for good measure. Mute that there. So you have like all of this crazy stuff. Whoa. Crazy stuff to choose from. Erosion, no thank you. Saturation. Oh wow. There's loads on here, isn't there? So have a look and really experiment with sound, because that could make such a massive difference. I say this all the time. I am not a vocalist, so being able to add effects just sort of makes you kind of get away with bad singing and bad playing. I shouldn't admit to that, but there we go. Okay, so that is sort of like a general rundown of how you can set up everything. Now remember to have everything audible. So I've got my keys here, I've got my guitar. I've got my vocals. They're probably a bit too loud for the mix. Play a B. So at this point, you might want to mess around with or just demoing that and recording it. So the way that you can do that in a really fun way in Ableton is this section here. So I've got this little record button at the top. So if I start recording this now, okay, you can see that this channel is being recorded. Let's have some effects. that. I just press the pause bar. Now you could see actually that these little dots have appeared. And what that means is that it was actually recording the automation. So when I changed these parameters, so when I sent my vocals to B, it actually saved that automation in there in the recording. So how to access the recording that I've just done, I just click on this button here and you can see that it is recorded, the track here. Okay, so if I press on this tiny little blue dot thingy here, it's very small. A lot of things in Ableton's very small. But it's just up here. Now, if I click on that, you can see the automation that was recorded when I sent the vocals and the guitar to my return effects. Go back onto that page. All right, so the cool thing about being able to do that is that if you're doing a live gig and you have all of your sound being routed through your computer and you're having complete control over your own EQ, your own compression, how things are balanced, and then obviously you can then record your entire set. Now, if you want to, as an additional step, I can still go in and edit all of that. I can still edit the compression if I want to. I can change or clip up the vocals and splice everything and move it around. So if there was something that I wasn't quite happy with, I could go in and edit that later, which is so good. Now, obviously, you can use the loop bar and just sort of drag and drop that over your session. And then you can export the audio and save that audio as a WAV file or an MP3. So then you've got that as a track, which is absolutely great. Okay, so that is sort of like a basic 101 guide. I think that is enough to sort of get you through how to set up a session. Now remember, if you're having trouble receiving sound or you're having trouble with latency, if you go into live and preferences, at the moment I've set my buffer size to 128. Now if I set that to 152, it might sound a bit better quality on your end, but trust and believe that I have got so much latency and it's making it hard to talk, so I'm going to drop that back down to 128. Now, as you can see, I've got my input device set to the Octacapture. I'm doing a screen recording at the moment, so I've actually set my output to the screen recording device, which I'm using QuickTime. So if you're going to be doing that, you're going to be doing a screen grab, then that is something that you can do. I hope this was helpful. I know it's a lot of information, so please go back and review if there was anything that I have missed. Otherwise, please experiment with a few of these things. Remember that mixing and live mixing is the same principle, whether you're doing it in Logic or Ableton. You're looking at your volume, your frequency, which is your EQ, the dynamics, and the last and not least, which I almost forgot to add in actually, is panning. So at the moment, my vocals are panned straight down here in the middle, but now I can pan them left to right if I want to. I might want to just do that to add a little bit more space. So I might put my synths here, my guitar a bit. Actually, no, I'll put that one more dramatic. Put this one a bit closer, and then maybe my Vox with the effects just slightly off to the left, like a harmony maybe. And then I'll probably want to keep my main vocals to the middle. So as long as you address all of those principles, that is a really, really good place to start with your mix and how to transmit it. And as I said, once you start playing around with these ideas and adding different loops and adding different textures, start recording this now. Okay, you can, oh, there we go, we've got it. You can then, on this other page, record that idea down really, really easily. So I hope this has helped. If you have any questions or if there's anything that you wanted to sort of delve into a little bit further, then I will explain that. Have your questions ready and we'll go through that within the lesson if there's anything that you wanted to cover. Well, thank you for watching and I hope this was helpful, and I shall see you in the next one. Thank you.